Hello and welcome to Quiz Time. I'm Jess and today we're going back to the 60s. Now, they say if you remember the 60s, you weren't there. So, should we find out? The Greensboro Sit-in in 1960 was a movement against communism, against the Korean War, or for civil rights. For civil rights. In the 1960s show, The Flintstones, what was the name of the Flintstones' neighbours? The Boulders, the Rubbles, or the Neanderthals? It was the Rubbles. The tunnel of fudge cake during the 1960s helped popularise the dinner party, bundt pan, or recipes from cake mix boxes. Bundt pan. Which 1938 novel by Henry Miller was republished in 1961? Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, or The Crucible? Tropic of Cancer. What New York City skyscraper plans were introduced in 1964? World Trade Center, Chrysler Building, or Empire State Building? World Trade Center. In 1966, what cult-like church was formed in San Francisco? Scientology, Church of Satan, or Illuminati? Church of Satan. Ford introduced which iconic car in 1964? Thunderbird, Cortina, or Mustang? The Mustang. Which large store was officially incorporated in the US in 1969? Target, Walmart, or Home Depot? It was Walmart. Which artist died in 1968 and was known as the founder of conceptual art? Marcel Duchamp, Donald Judd, or Roy Lichtenstein? Marcel Duchamp. What musician made a comeback after being honourably discharged from the army in 1964? John Coltrane, Elvis Presley, or Willie Nelson? Elvis Presley. President John F. Kennedy called for social and economic reform. He called it the New Frontier, Deal, or Dilemma? Frontier. In 1961, which new invention did IBM release to the public? Walkman audio player, toaster oven, or typewriter? Typewriter. In the 1960s, what was the fancy loungewear called that women wore while entertaining in their homes? Modwear, hostess pajamas, or dolly girl clothing? Hostess pajamas. Now they sound great. I've always wanted to entertain in my pajamas. What was the name of the first sugar-free soda released nationwide in 1962? No-Cal, Diet Right, or Tab? Diet Right. What career Barbie doll was introduced in 1965? Journalist Barbie, Dr. Barbie, or Miss Astronaut Barbie? Miss Astronaut Barbie. In 1961, which baseball player beat Babe Ruth's single-season home run record? Roger Maris, Mickey Mantle, or Hank Aaron? Roger Maris. In 1961, President Kennedy advised all prudent families to have a colour television, refrigerator, or bomb shelter. A bomb shelter. True or false? In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, originally published in 1965, was a fictional story about a botched burglary in Kansas. It's false. It was based on a true story. What was the name of the first James Bond film? Dr. No, From Russia with Love, or Goldfinger? Dr. No. What American magazine ended its publications after 147 years in 1963? The American Weekly, the American Home, or the Saturday Evening Post? The Saturday Evening Post. What John Lennon song exposed the UK to the conflict of the Vietnam War? Give Peace a Chance, Imagine, or Let It Be? Give Peace a Chance. How long did the Cuban Missile Crisis last between the US and the Soviet Union in 1962? 7 days, 13 days, or 30 days? "13 days." In 1962, how many hours per week did ABC Network start showing a colour telecast? 3.5 hours, 1 hour, or 6 hours? 3.5 hours. It's hard to imagine it wasn't that long ago. What type of salad reached its peak popularity during the 1960s? Cobb salad, Caesar salad, or wedge salad? Wedge salad. The 1960 novel To Kill a Mockingbird was set in which fictional town in the US? Petal, Mississippi, Americus, Georgia, or Maycomb, Alabama? Maycomb, Alabama. What became unconstitutional in US schools starting in 1962? Bomb drills, praying, or fitness tests? Praying. Which of the following was a Scottish pop artist during the 1960s? Eduardo Pelosi, Richard Hamilton, or Robert Rauschenberg? Eduardo Pelosi. In 1962, where did the Rolling Stones make their debut in London? Marquee Club, London Palladium or La Chasse. Marquee Club. Where did France test their first A-bomb in 1960? Sahara Desert, Marshall Islands or Bora Bora? Sahara Desert. What intervention by Emil Fraas was adapted by the majority of the US by 1965? Pull-tab containers, can opener or Tupperware containers? Pull-tab containers. What type of shoes became trendy during the 1960s? Moccasins, penny loafers or both of the above? Moccasins. In 1966, what was the name of the freeze-dried coffee developed by Nestlé? Taster's Choice, Sanka or Maxwell House? Taster's Choice. What board game was released by Milton Bradley Company in 1960? Clue, Monopoly or the Game of Life? The Game of Life. Which athlete refused military service in 1967? Muhammad Ali, Wilt Chamberlain or Sandy Koufax? Muhammad Ali. What famous movie star was found dead in 1963? Judy Garland, Marilyn Monroe or Patsy Cline? Marilyn Monroe. What was the last film supervised by Walt Disney in 1967? The Sound of Music, The Jungle Book or The Parent Trap? The Jungle Book. What was the name of the concert that is referred to as Woodstock West? Altamont, Monterey Festival or Newport Folk Festival? Altamont. Teenagers in the UK during the 1960s were the first generation free from conscription, war rations or communism. Conscription. Who was promoted to First Secretary of State in 1968 by the British Prime Minister? Barbara Castle, Margaret Thatcher or Michael Stewart? Barbara Castle. What was one of the first countries to participate as a benefit nation when the Peace Corps was founded during the 1960s? Madagascar, Belize or Ghana? Ghana. How many actors have been the lead role in the television show Doctor Who since it first aired in 1963? 5, 9 or 14? Wonder if anyone can name them all without looking it up. Which dish was first prepared by Julia Child on her show, The French Chef, in 1965? Chicken pot pie, lobster roll, or beef Wellington? Beef Wellington. Oh, we're into my favourite sections, talking about food. Which book, released in 1963, sparked a feminist revolution in the US? The Bell Jar, The Feminine Mystique, or Bad Feminist? The Feminine Mystique. One of the best-selling cars during the 1960s in the UK was a Vauxhall, Vector, Viva, or Valiant. Viva. The biggest department stores in the US during the 1960s were Macy's, Hudson's, and Marshall Field, Kohl's, or Burlington. Marshall Field. What Caravaggio painting was cut from its frame in Italy in 1969? The Crucifixion of St. Peter, Nativity with St. Francis and St. Lawrence, or the Madonna of the Grooms? Nativity with St. Francis and St. Lawrence. On The Ed Sullivan Show in 1967, what word did Jim Morrison sing even though he was told not to? Higher, lover, or an explicit word? It was higher. How many Easy Bake ovens were sold in its first year of production in 1963? 10,000, 500,000, or 1 million? Excuse me, 500,000. Sorry, you can't stop a sneeze. What was the Miss America protest in 1968 called? Counterculture, Freedom Trash Can, or Student Movement? Freedom Trash Can. Which alcoholic drink was advertised as the king of cooling drinks during the 1960s? Old Fashioned, Negroni, or Tom Collins? Tom Collins. What game was released in 1961 and marketed as the game that ties you up in knots? Twister, Beat the Clock, or Bucket of Fun? Twister. 1960s was the inaugural season of which league? La Liga, National Football League, or International Soccer League? International Soccer League. How many days were businesses shut down after President Kennedy was killed? 3 days, 7 days, or 1 day? Three days. True or false? President of the American Teamsters, Jimmy Hoffa, was acquitted of charges in 1964 for bribing a jury. False. He's actually sentenced to 8 years in prison. In 1969, the tie for the Academy Award Best Actress was between Barbra Streisand and Patricia Neal, Joanne Woodward or Katharine Hepburn? Katharine Hepburn. Finish the quote by stand-up comedian Charlie Fleischer. If you remember the 60s, you remembered wrong. You know it was swinging, or you really weren't there. Were you paying attention to the beginning? I think I might have said it. You really weren't there. Do you remember it? Were you there? The Profumo affair during the 1960s involved the UK Secretary of War, model and Nazi sympathiser, Russian military attaché or US spy. Russian military attaché. What was the 1960s referred to as in the UK but not in the US? The swinging 60s, the singing 60s, or the psychedelic 60s? The swinging 60s. What was the name of the popular celebrity hairdresser who cut Mary Quant and Goldie Hawn's hair? Vidal Sassoon, Kenneth, or Antoine de Paris? Vidal Sassoon. What was the subgenre of rock and roll in the UK during the 1960s? Arena rock, freak beat, or glam metal? Freak beat. In 1960, the US Navy sent a Swiss researcher and Navy lieutenant to what unexplored part of the world? Bermuda Triangle, Mariana Trench, or outer space? Mariana Trench. Who received the first ever star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1960? Joanne Woodward, Audrey Hepburn, or Elvis Presley? Joanne Woodward. What US landmark officially closed in 1963, later becoming a museum? Statue of Liberty, Alcatraz Prison, or Titanic wreckage? Alcatraz Prison. Malcolm X was a spokesman for the Civil Rights Movement, Democratic Party, or Nation of Islam? Nation of Islam. What was the first television special of the cartoon Peanuts in 1965? A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, A Charlie Brown Christmas, or is The Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown? A Charlie Brown Christmas. What type of dip became popular during the 1960s? Spinach artichoke dip, French onion dip, or crab dip? French onion dip. In the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 1965, Charlie's last name was Bucket, Loompa, or Salt? It was Charlie Bucket. By 1960, what percentage was the American home ownership rate at? 32%, 52%, or 62%? 62%. What sports car did Jaguar release in the UK in 1961? E-Type, D-type or XK150? E-type. British pop artist Richard Hamilton created an album cover for which popular band? The Beach Boys, The Doors, or The Beatles? The Beatles. How many people were at the famous Woodstock Music Festival in New York in 1969? 50,000, 100,000 or 500,000? $500,000. Queen Elizabeth II appointed which Prime Minister in 1964? Edward Heath, Harold Wilson or Alec Douglas Home? Harold Wilson. What became more standard equipment in vehicles during the mid-1960s? Turn signal, airbags or seat belts? Seat belts. What article of clothing was a part of the Ivy League style during the 1960s? Little black dress, poodle skirts or penny loafers? Penny loafers. In the 1960s, the Coca-Cola Company introduced more flavours of Fanta soda, including orange, grape and root beer, cherry vanilla or strawberry? Strawberry. What was the name of the 1965 board game that is meant to be played in the dark? Bebop, Green Ghost or Dogfight? Green Ghost. When England defeated West Germany in the 1966 World Cup, what was the final score? 4-2, 1-0 or 5-3? It was 4-2. They think it's all over. It was then. What was the name of the first discotheque established in 1960? Whiskey A Go Go, Le Club or Disco Fever? Le Club. What Northern Californian killer was active during 1968 and 69 and murdered 5 known victims? Son of Sam, Zodiac Killer or Co-Ed Killer? Zodiac Killer. The 1962 film Lawrence of Arabia was based on what book? 7 Pillars of Wisdom, The King and I, or The Magician's Nephew? Seven Pillars of Wisdom. How long did it take Bob Dylan to record his first album, released in 1962? 2 afternoons, 1 day, or 3 weeks? 2 afternoons. In 1961, who organised the Civil Rights Freedom Rides in the US? Congress of Racial Equality, President Kennedy, or Martin Luther King Jr.? Congress of Racial Equality. Which American sitcom premiered in 1969? The Addams Family, Gilligan's Island or the Brady Bunch? The Brady Bunch. What appetizer from Great Britain became popular in the US in the 1960s? Baked clams, shrimp cocktail, or hamburger sliders? Shrimp cocktail. Where did poet Maya Angelou move in 1961? Ghana, Venezuela, or Egypt? Egypt. In 1961, what nation became independent from Great Britain? Tanganyika or Tanzania, Peru or Martinique? Tanganyika or Tanzania. What was the name of jeans that were popular in the 1960s from Levi's? 502, 511 or 501? 501s, the Levi 501s. British artist Bridget Riley created movement in squares, kiss and pause. What type of art style were they? Pop art, Art Deco or op art? Op art. Miranda rights were established after the 1966 ruling. What do Miranda rights include? Right to an attorney, right to remain silent, or both of the above? Both of the above. In 1967, where was the first heart transplant performed? United States, France, or South Africa? South Africa. True or false? Dolly's Girl Style was known for its crochet clothing and long hair. True. What ingredient was banned in the US to add to root beer in 1960? Nicotine, DDT, or saffron oil? Sassafras oil. What is the difference between regular chess and the 1968 Dynamo chess? The pieces are different. Pieces can be pushed or pulled, or it can last for days. Pieces can be pushed or pulled. What was the name of the New York Mets theme song written for the baseball team's inaugural season? New York, New York, Mr. Met, or Meet the Mets? Meet the Mets. In 1963, what did the US Post Office Department introduce? Zip codes, Postmaster General, or adhesive postage stamps? Zip codes. True or false? Cult leader Charles Manson never physically killed someone. It's true. In the 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey, which planet was the spacecraft sent to? Pluto, Jupiter, or Neptune? Jupiter. The UK was what type of government from the late 1950s to the early 1960s? Conservative, Republican, or Labour? Conservative. What place claims to be the first venue played by the Beatles? Indra Club, Germany, the Cavern Club, England, or the Prince of Wales Theatre in England? Indra Club in Germany. And your last one, question 100. What was the name of the person who killed Robert Kennedy in 1968? Lee Harvey Oswald, Siram, or he was killed in a plane crash? Siran. So, how did you do on the 1960s? Drop your score in the comments below. And of course, like and subscribe so you get notified every time we post a new quiz. And please, join us next time on Quiz Time.